Hello, and welcome to the Cultivating Confidence podcast. I am your host, Dr. Nicole Grams. I am a life coach who specializes in anxiety, health, and human design. And I also happen to be a functional medicine pharmacist. This podcast is a compilation of conversations that I've had with clients and colleagues. So listen in as we explore the mind, body, and soul's confidence in its many forms.
Oh, there we go. Here we go. So, yeah, man, with the cards, that is an interesting topic. Do you have any Oracle angel cards? Do you use them? Just for personal, do you use them with clients?
I don't know that I've really used them with clients much. I've used them with friends, but I do have a couple of decks of tarot cards and Oracle cards, and yep. I do refer to them sometimes if I'm trying to find an answer for myself, but I also I know that the skeptic in me from a few years ago, I've always considered myself an open-minded skeptic where I'm willing to try everything, but I'm not going to buy in until I'm thoroughly convinced.
Yeah.
And my friends and I, a few years ago, were hanging out. On one of those rare occasions when we all get together, it was four of us, and we went for mimosas and brunch at a place. And right next door, there was a tarot reader sign out, and we're like, yeah, we're going in. And we went in and we all observed each other's readings. And for each of us individually, it was very eerily spot on to our specific situations that we were going through. Because we're all four independent people living very different lives in very different, we're not near each other. We just went in and it was my brain was fully in when I was there. And then I tried to discount it after I left. And I'm well, but it was really awesome, but really, was it real, or did I just make that up? And that's sort of the beauty of it, is we're making everything up.
Interesting.
We're making
everything is up to our translation, right?
Right. So what I have learned to do for myself and how to explain it for myself is that tarot cards, oracle cards, whatever sort of, things that you want to play with to gain insight about yourself is really just for that. Because you can lay things out and then you decide, okay, is this resonating with me on some level? If so, why? If not, why? Do I think this is a bunch of crap, or is there something in my life that could apply to this? Right. So it's really kind of about you applying yourself to what comes up in a way, if you don't believe that it's, the universe guiding the cards, those sorts of things.
Which that is interesting too. I have done card readings where I can feel right away, oh, this person is just they're not sure, they're not, and it took there's that resistance, right? Especially I run into it a lot. And actually I love that, now that I am using cards with clients, I felt it too. I was raised strictly Catholic. I've worked with a lot of clients now too that are I'm just not so sure, am I allowed to do this? Is this some voodoo witchcraft stuff? And honestly, I had that feeling too, that wonder, because of just from your upbringing. Mm-hmm. We're all conditioned, to whatever beliefs. Maybe you were more heavily influenced, by one particular religion or another, and just grew to believe that oh no, this is not okay. It's not allowed by the rules. It's a way of kind of messing with God's divine order. And as I started getting more and more naturally drawn to them, and I like how you said it, that I'd play with the cards for myself when I'm looking for an answer. We're all connected. I love to remind everyone, that the cards that I use, I actually lean away from the traditional tarot, because that was the impression that I got, even some of the images and the cards, and it just seemed to have, to me personally, in some ways can have almost seem a darker energy about it. And maybe my upbringing And just that fear of like, is this against the rules, kind of made me almost afraid of them for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was introduced to oracle cards, and the vast variety of them that's out there. It's like you find these decks, or you're led, or you go to a tarot reading, and whatever decks they have, there's so many out there now.
Mm-hmm.
And really, perhaps in those cases where we have that fear, like we're giving too much power to the cards themselves and not recognizing that it's like in the hands of the person using them, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a way for us to connect. I love using the cards to find those answers for myself too. I'll just shuffle through and see what cards fall out. And I'm like, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's what I needed to hear today.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always what we wanted to hear.
Yeah.
But and a lot of times too, it might not even make sense in the moment. But I love, honestly, I kind of love when that happens. A lot of the times, we're always laughing in client calls that we're like, oh, you can't make this stuff up. The things that pop up,
Right.
and then we're talking about something, and then the next card comes up, and we're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But sometimes, even for myself, something comes up, and I'm like, oh, I'm not sure about this. But then later that day, something happens where I'm like, oh my gosh, I got the warning. Like a seed had to be planted first.
Yeah.
So I think it's all just right. Just let it be a tool, right? Just like any other tool you might use, like for, I'm more familiar with Catholicism. So, I mean, the rosary, we use the rosary to help us focus into our prayer. Like, why not use a card deck of any kind that resonates with you? I mean, you can tell immediately by the look of it, by the feel of the cards. As you shuffle through, like you're infusing your energy into it, and it's helping you tap into that oneness.
Yeah.
The universal oneness, connecting to God, insert the word that works for you,
Right.
but we're all connected to it. And it's just a way to help us bridge the gap when we feel disconnected at times, which is often a lot, when we're letting, the thoughts in our head and ego run wild and telling us all these things we shouldn't do. And we start questioning and worrying that we have to figure out all of our problems and all the questions of the universe, all today, hurry up, we should have done it yesterday. And in those moments I pull out the cards, and they always remind me, like, hey, slow down, you're on your path.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just need that. It's like, in a way, coming from ourselves, because we are the ones picking the cards or like letting them all fly.
Mm-hmm.
But what comes out, it's like that reassurance, that nurturing that we need, or perhaps that lesson. Perhaps we've been struggling over, a particular issue lately, and there's something, in our gut that feels icky that we like don't want to face. Sometimes it calls that out.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that happened. It was meant to be. Don't beat yourself up over it. Use it as a stepping stone to move forward. And it can help us, get through those tough moments a little easier too. But yeah, I avoid it. Funny. I mean, I was doing card readings, in my Facebook group for a while before I even started doing them with my clients. And it suddenly hit me like, why the heck am I not doing this with everybody? I do it for myself almost every day, and it's so helpful. Why wouldn't I use it with clients? So it's actually become a big piece of my work, actually, where we focus a lot of our calls on the card readings, and it's a nice supplement, to infuse in there, and it can help like guide the conversation and bring like clarity and insight and just that extra validation, not just coming from me, another human, right? A coach, a guide, someone, that they can trust and depend on. But when we add that element of spirit into it, it just adds a whole new, takes it to another level.
Right.
Where I found like my clients being able to make progress faster by like being able to ride this wave of support from the universe.
Right.
And every week. I mean, it happened this morning too. Man, there's been a lot of stuff about like healing parent relationships lately too. That's been coming up a lot. It's popping up in the cards constantly right now. And man, I mean, that has been the main issue. But just that for example, like, you can't make it up. And so when we're talking about this issue and like working through it together, and then we pull the card that like confirms it, it's like, oh yeah, brilliant. It's just a great way, right, to connect those dots and help kind of propel people forward on the path. It's like the spirit is boosting them, giving you that oomph.
And I feel like the cards can be used as like, if you're trying to make a decision, or you think you've made a decision and you're not sure, and that sort of thing, like pulling a card can give you your answer, whether it's the right card or not. Cause like you can look at it and say like, oh yeah, I totally knew that was the answer I was looking for. Or you can look at it and you can say like, no, I like my answer better. Like but either way, you end up with more confidence with the answer you've been searching for.
And you have the choice. It's
Right.
all in your power.
Yeah.
We should play around with some cards here. I've got a whole stack of different, like, these are the card decks
Wow.
I'm working
Nice.
with right now. And this isn't all of them, but these are like my top
Yeah.
favorites. Most of them were gifted to me too.
Yeah.
So that's a fun thing. And I've been
Yeah.
thinking,
So,
I've been feeling called to like get another deck. So I'm like putting that energy
right.
out there. However, I'm going to manifest that. I feel like there's a new one that's on its way.
Yeah. So when you were talking about like how you have kind of been drawn more towards oracle decks and not as much traditional tarot, like I don't know if mine is it's probably back here somewhere. Oh, it's over there. My tarot deck isn't the what is it, the Rider Waite one, I don't know if that's the original one or like the most well-known one.
Yeah.
Mine has very different imagery and its own book. And, you know, everybody who makes a tarot deck has their own interpretation of the things. And I have just written my own interpretations alongside with, I've looked on the internet. I found a site that I really resonated with, and I ended up writing notes about every single card that like sounded the best, or like not sounded the best, but like resonated the most with me about
Yeah.
that card. I could feel that with it. But I find myself shying away from oracle cards for some reason. Like I really, really like my tarot deck, and I have gotten a couple of other tarot decks since that point, but none of them have been quite the same as the one. So like this is the one that I'm just going to speak with until I find another one maybe someday. But like
Right.
I'm always looking like at different shops and stuff. I'll inspect every single one of them, and maybe this is my emotional authority of not having an answer in the moment, but like I'll look at all of them, and then like it's only if I like dwell on one after I leave that's like I think I need that one, and I go back and there it is, or it's not, you know, and then it wasn't meant to be or whatever. But yeah, I really find myself more drawn towards tarot itself and kind of doing different readings. I've done relationship readings and just your standard 3 card thing and all kinds of different things, but it kind of tells a story for me, where for me,
Oh,
the
definitely.
oracle cards don't necessarily do that as much for me.
Yeah, and it all depends on what kind of, like, what, I mean, every deck is different. Like I just
Right.
showed you. I mean, this whole stack, every one is different. They have different numbers of cards in each one. So maybe perhaps like the rebellious side in me liked breaking away from the traditional tarot and just like, doing the whole big spread and all of that. And like, I just like, do it more intuitively. Again, like
Sure.
letting this be a tool for you, again, like resonating, like what feels right? What deck do I want to use today? And interpreting it in your own way, because it is your
Yeah.
choice,
Yeah.
Same with, I mean, really with anything, there's no strict set of rules,
Right.
I don't believe there's really a wrong way of doing it as long as you're
No.
coming into it with, pure intention,
Mm-hmm.
not wishing any harm upon anybody else,
Yeah.
with what you're doing. Of course, like, no, this is no voodoo or witchcraft
Right.
or any of that kind of
Right.
stuff. Like, this is all for you,
Yeah.
reflection for you. Some I like using the decks here because I really like, and these are mostly oracle decks like that.
Mhm.
I like the descriptions on them. They do
Yeah.
always tell a story, and no matter how many you pull, and sometimes I really let it be random. Often I stick to the 3, kind of to the past, present, future. But a lot of times I just see literally what falls out, what's thrown
Mhm.
out at us, what story do we need today, and even just how they unfold. It does kind of follow that kind of past, present, future pattern. Sometimes it's really just digging into an issue. Okay, this is what's going on. Here are some tools, ways to manage that come out. And gosh, just that reassurance, that validation, man,
Mhm.
has been the most powerful part of using them for me, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, and this deck is fun that I'm playing with right now. This was gifted to me several years ago. This is an Angel Therapy Oracle card deck. And I like this one because the descriptions on the cards are like detailed enough where like you don't
Mhm.
even really have to get into the description in the book, to go deeper and get the gist of what it's trying to say. But I just pulled this card the other day. Perhaps we both need it, but it's singing and dancing.
Ooh.
And I love that this came up. I pulled it from my partner and I earlier, which I grew up dancing. He is a great singer and musician. I'm like, interesting. Lately, we both need to be singing and dancing more often. And just, I love the words, express yourself and awaken your psychic senses through the magical power of music and movement. You know, just those little reminders for us, that was like, oh my gosh, immediately sprung us back to passion that we have for singing and dancing. And like, of course it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, it's been a little stressful lately. A lot has been going on, a lot of happening. And like, that reminder to like, be simple, just play, have some fun was just what we needed.
And, you know, I feel like the more I learn about tarot and the more I learn about really any sort of energetic practice, we're all trying to do the same thing. Like I feel like my resistance originally came for like all of the energy things, you know, all the woo side of life, whatever. I was always so drawn in by it. Like I wanted to watch it. I wanted to learn about it. But I was like, oh, that's not real. You know, like I was conditioned to believe that way. And like the resistance, I think for me came from my science background of the like, no, this has to be tested and proven and, you know, all this stuff. And then like the farther I get into that, the more I realize that guidelines are not actually based on, you know, reality of what the studies are actually saying or what's best for people. So, you know, we're throwing that out too. Might as well bring all the energy stuff in. But really, what we're doing with energy work and tarot and all the things is healing the body in a way that just uses different words than what we use in like functional medicine, of root cause medicine, of like the singing and dancing, bringing joy to your life. Like that's what we want to do in medicine too, to actually heal your body. You want to feel good in your body. So like those things are, you know, like they're so parallel, and it's like staring in a mirror sometimes of the like, oh, you're wrong, like my way is right, you're wrong. But like we're saying the same thing.
Exactly. I mean, everybody, what I really love, you know, and that everybody's truth is their truth, right? It is true. It might not be true for someone else, but there is no right and wrong. I'm right and you're wrong, right? Everybody's got their own truth, their own interpretation. And funny that you even mentioned, you know, the science background. I mean, I did have a former life of working as a chemical engineer, like as black and white as it could be. Like, you needed, you know, it's so logical thinking, black and white, you know, like have to calculate the right answer. But man, one of the most interesting things I learned in engineering school is that the theoretical answer is theoretical for a reason, right? Like it rarely perfectly applies to real life. But the play on energy too, and like going into physics, like you can prove a lot of this metaphysical stuff now, and there's more and more research backing this up. Like we know scientists cannot deny that everything is energy. We're all made up of
quite
energy.
literally.
Except right down to the most basic fundamentals of atoms, and that we are all just a bunch of electrons bouncing around all over the place. We're all energy. Our words, our thoughts are energy. And our intentions, everything, you know, like the term of like, you know, you could cut that tension with a knife when you walk into a room and it feels really tense. That is energy. We all feel it. And in a way that's tapping into your psychic ability to even be able to sense that. We all have it. It's just whether or not, it's almost like a dimmer switch. You know, some people have theirs turned all the way down and absolutely do not want anything to do with it. They're not tapped into it, don't believe in it. Others maybe a little bit, it's a little fuzzy, but we have the control to play with that dimmer switch, to turn it up, turn it down, to turn up your, you know, psychic abilities in whatever way that's expressed, whether through psychic visions, from hearing, from just sensing, that inner knowing. I read a really interesting book on all the different psychic senses. That's, I think it's called You Really Are Psychic, something along those lines. And it's written by a scientist, and I loved it. Really tying together the scientific and this metaphysical, like woo-woo world. It's all one thing. We all have it.
Well, and if you read anything from Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza, like I can't argue that. Like
you can't.
he lays it out so logically. Like I wish I could soak it in and just like spit it out exactly how he says it in that depth, but I obviously haven't done the research and spent that much time with it. But like just reading what he has to say is just absolutely mind blowing. Like I there was a time where I really felt like I was going to be completely shunned from the medical community for, even considering any of this other alternative medicine, alternative health,
Yeah,
alternative wellness
you're
stuff.
definitely not alone in that.
And but then like then I got some coaching and it was like, actually, most of the people that I talk about this with are other medical professionals, right? They're my friends who also happen to be medical professionals. Like we can't be our own little pod of, misfits in the entire world. Like, no, there are more people that are very into this stuff and maybe just not willing to admit it. Right.
That's definitely true. And
Mhm.
I yeah, definitely experienced that a lot because I mean, most of my clients come to me. Some of them are like very into the cards and already,
Sure.
like,
Yeah.
yes, I want to do this. But a lot of people message me with a lot of uncertainty. They're like, I'm really curious about this, but I'm not sure if I
Yeah.
should, but I feel really called to do it. I'm like, trust your heart, go
Yeah.
with it. The power is yours. The way you live your life should not be according to anyone else's rules but your own.
Mhm.
And really, if you feel a calling to explore something that might seem a little weird to someone else or, against the rules according to, your parents or whatever, authority that you've been conditioned by, you're actually kind of breaking your own rules by not listening to your heart, by
Right.
not allowing yourself to
Yeah.
explore that. So give yourself the permission to explore what is calling for you. What and I keep like reaching for my heart here, and you feel that nagging, like, oh,
Yeah.
I really want to, but I don't know if I should. If
Yeah.
you're feeling, like questioned over should or shouldn't, I mean, that's usually my sign is
Yeah.
if I hear my, ego
Right.
saying you should do this, you shouldn't do that. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, okay, that's my sign to do the opposite of
Yeah.
what ego's
Pretty
trying to
much.
control me with.
Yeah.
And just give it a shot. I'd never, try to push any ideas or beliefs on anyone that, truly, is not resonating with it. But
Mhm.
I love having the opportunity to encourage people, whatever your
Explore.
beliefs are, explore, let
Yeah.
yourself be curious.
If you've
Because
got
isn't
that,
that,
yeah,
yeah,
if
go
you've
ahead.
got that pull, like you were saying from your chest, like that's where I feel it too. The like, I gotta know, like, I gotta find
You
out more
gotta
about
know.
this.
Yeah. Why not? And if nothing else, if you explore it and you find out, oh yeah, no, that doesn't feel right with
Right.
me, then now you know.
Yeah. And
And you can
I have
then it relieves that pulling, right? That nagging to go explore it.
yeah, I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but I know that I have like tested the waters in some things, and there are obviously some things that resonate more with me than others, and I'm just fine with leaving the other things to the other people who it does resonate with. Like they're just not my fractal line people. You know what I mean? Like it's,
Yep.
again, there's no rules.
There are no rules.
Yeah.
There really aren't, right? You create and determine them yourself just based off of, hold on, let me see this book. I might have just been given. What did you just grab? Is that a tarot?
Oh, yeah, these are actually are they oracle cards? They're botany, not well, they're plant herb things
Oh, oh,
with
that's
different, so
beautiful.
there's like a plant and then a word associated with that, and then I have it all handwritten in a smaller book than what it came with. but
Nice.
but yeah, I was feeling drawn to go get it, so I did.
Man, just that like case or the book that it's in looked
Oh, yeah,
familiar.
this is a beautiful wooden case
Oh,
that I got from a store that it's got a tree on it, which I
yeah, I love
love.
that. The Tree of
Yeah.
Life. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That just made me think. I was actually just gifted this big, beautiful book of a traditional tarot deck and a whole big book on it. So interesting that we're having this conversation because I'm going to be diving more into the traditional tarot. And like when I
Nice.
saw it and was handed, I was like, ooh, for the first time, I think I felt really drawn to just the look, the feel,
Mhm.
everything of this deck. So who knows
Yeah.
what I'll have to say on one of our next calls after I go through that.
Yeah. Right.
It even reminded me too, man, another deck I'd love to get. A good friend of mine has one that is structured more like a traditional tarot, but it also functions as a regular deck of playing cards. and like the coolest deck I've ever seen. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, the colors are like in this beautiful, like navy and gold, like metallic style, very kind of like cosmic, starry, beautiful artwork on it. My, that's the kind of deck I need, to be able to play some cards too,
Right.
and get some insight along the way. The descriptions were just very simple, and just the numbers and the art on that deck was just phenomenal. So I'd love to check that out too. But there's so many options out there now. I think a lot of people hear, tarot cards, and they think, perhaps back to, the tried and true, the original tarot deck. Some people believe like that's all you can use, like that's the right real one. Everything
Right.
else is like this fake knockoff. And I'm all for believing, just grab what calls to you.
Yep.
There are so many options out there now because, like you said, we are all so different. We
Yeah.
all resonate with different things differently, and just
Yeah.
honor that. Maybe there's a deck that really repels you and you're like, no, I don't want to believe in any of that. Fine, leave it alone. You don't have to touch it. Nobody's forcing you, nobody's making
Yeah.
you. But if you see something else, or see anybody like doing a reading here and there, or like you said, you see that shop, and like sometimes you see, a psychic shop, and you're like, oh, I don't know about that. That kind of freaks me out. And then there's another one, you're like, ooh, I just feel called to go in. Well, then just trust that.
Yeah.
They're not all one and the same, but they do all offer that opportunity to explore.
Yeah.
And it's up to you to decide if you want to explore down that path or not.
As I pull the fern and growth.
Growth. Exactly. Because what is there to gain in exploration but growth, to learn something new? And to remember too that the cards, it can be, a lot of people actually seem to feel a lot of fear around them. Maybe for some, like, oh no, we're not supposed to be doing this, we're messing in something that's not our power to do. But in other cases too, some people come, and even clients, some will come to my calls, and they're just feeling more fear that day. Like they're afraid that they're going to be told exactly what they don't want to hear.
Right.
And just don't even want to go there. And just trusting that, again, coming with the intention, and especially in any reading I do, I take some time with the cards, knowing that like again, everything is energy. My energy is affecting this deck right now just because it's in my hands. So especially when I'm doing card readings online with people, like I have to sit and do some meditation. And often, I'll be burning sage, or Palo Santo has been one of my favorites lately, to literally clear my energy from this deck. And I have to take some conscious effort, meditation time, to focus on that person that I'll be doing the reading for, and to infuse their energy into the deck. And sometimes I'll do that and feel set before we get on the call. Other times, it's until they get on the call and we're talking for a while, and then I'm like shuffling the cards some more while we're talking to really infuse that in there too. But remembering that by setting that intention, that's where I'm getting, and doing this meditation first, I'm also protecting us from any negative energies coming through. That may only loving, positive, pure light vibrations come through these cards. Because your guides, your highest self, God, right, is love. It is like, I can't even think of, an infinity of love, like the most powerful, loving energy that we can tap into. That's what's coming through here. And there's nothing to be afraid of. Even if you are being delivered a message you don't want to hear, it's being delivered with love.
Yeah.
So that you can see that, so you can get, that insight, that answer. Maybe the answer doesn't come right away. Maybe it comes a day, weeks, maybe even months later, where you're like, oh yeah. I mean, perhaps you or one of your friends experienced that, much, great time after that event, when it's suddenly like, oh my gosh, yeah, that tarot reader told me this. I have that happen to me all the time. I love going and getting my cards read by someone else too. Just getting that fresh, different perspective. And it is interesting that whether we're reading the cards for ourselves or someone's reading them for us, I mean, we can read the descriptions and get into the booklet, like everyone has its description in the book. You can read that, which is translated, by whoever made that booklet. The person that's reading the cards, whether it's you or someone else, is going to have a different twist on it. So, I mean, that could be an interesting thing to explore too, is to do, play with the same cards and see what different things come up with different people. Because again, we're all energy. olfacting, and the people that we connect with. Perhaps you were drawn to that card reader that day, and to get that person's perspective, they're like, their little twist, their little translation on it might have added, just one more little nugget that you
Yep.
needed, like planted that one little extra seed that you might not have otherwise gotten from, reading that same deck by yourself. So again, just tapping in, it's a way for us to connect not only with spirit, with ourselves, our high self, but with others too.
Yeah.
So what a fun thing to go and do that with your friends and like do a reading together and see how that all infused together.
Well, and I feel like all four of us, well, maybe not all four of us, but there was this sense of like, we're doing something a little taboo and like, oh, this isn't, whatever, but oh, we've had a couple of mimosas, so let's go do it anyway. It's fine. Right. So like, you don't need the mimosas, just go in and do it. It's fine.
It kind of adds a little exciting element to it. If you do have that feeling like, oh, is this a little taboo? Well, shit, go and explore it.
Well, we're in it together.
Find out. Let yourself be a rebel then. Let yourself be a rebel if you feel called to do it, and go do something a little taboo, because maybe the world needs a little more of that.
Yeah.
A little more of like maybe a few more rule breakers around here, not that we're like going off breaking major rules and committing crimes. And I mean nothing by that mean, but like breaking the conditional rules, right? Breaking out of that box, perhaps that many of us were formed into as we grew up, right?
Yeah.
Depending on, whatever religious background or,
Science
whatever
background.
your environment. Yeah. Your environment, the community, whatever that was like, we're all shaped, and often some more so than others, kind of like forced into this box of, all right, here's your life, here's where you were born, here's what you are, here's what you believe. And for some of us, that just never felt right.
No.
And we have to break out of that box. We have to find our own shape. Maybe you're not square. Maybe you're round. Maybe you're star. Maybe you're some crazy other oblong shape. Like, yes, like let yourself explore and expand and find the shape that works for you. But it all comes down, I think that's the key word, explore. Why not be a rebel today and let yourself explore a bit?
Thank you for taking the time to listen in today. Many of you will be able to take the ideas that you've heard and apply them in your daily life, and that's really all you need. That's amazing. But for those of you who could use a little one-on-one help with how to make these things actually work for you in your real life, please reach out. The link to schedule a consult with me is in the show notes. You don't have to do this alone. See you soon.